£300-400 a day, and that's just a day. That's not me going partying. That's not me having a good time. That's not me sharing with friends. That is just baseline. And then I got out of that. I got out of that job. I thought I'd had my rock bottom. I thought I hit my rock bottom. I wrote my mum this long letter telling her about what I was doing. I didn't mention the drugs because I didn't know there was a problem. I just thought my lifestyle was a problem. So I wrote her this letter explaining what I'd done, begging her to help me and buy me out of this club because I had to be brought out. And she was heartbroken. I've still to this day, I've never seen heartbreak like it. She projectile vomited. She was disgusted in me. And I thought that was going to be my change. But what I didn't realise was I thought it was me that was the problem. I didn't realise I had a drug problem. I didn't realise I had a drink problem. So I changed my life and got this.
Welcome to the show, Chloe.
Thank you for having me.
Now, where is that lovely accent?
I'm from England.
Okay, born and raised?
Born and raised in England.
So you're the third person that's been on here that's born and raised in England. One lives in Scotland now. The other one lives around London. And
I'm close-ish to London. I'm close-ish.
okay, yeah, you might even follow that. She has like 60,000 Instagram followers. Abby something. ABI. But she always posts funny videos. I'll send you her page. She's really funny.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, definitely. So what's your sober date?
Well, so I'm actually 91 days today, whatever that date is. I had 3 years my first time round, and then I don't think you're a proper addict until you've relapsed because I had to go and try it all. So
Yep, I've been there myself with drinking, where when I relapsed, it was with drinking and not my drug of choice. And then
yeah.
I ended up getting sober from drinking as well. So I can definitely relate. So let's start all the way back. How old are you?
I'm 30.
Okay, and when did you first get into drinking or using? How old were you?
It's really difficult. I was allowed to drink from the age of 12. My dad is in active addiction, so it was just there for me. It wasn't a big deal. It wasn't a taboo subject. It wasn't like, oh, I shouldn't be doing that. I was allowed to.
Yeah, and plus in England too, you're already allowed to drink at a younger age. Like it's way more acceptable than say in the States,
Yeah.
where I was sneaking it at 12 and not like hanging out. So I can see how you would fall easily into that then.
Yeah, and it's just over here. It's really. I always tried to be popular because my dad would buy the alcohol for everybody. I had the parent that was like the cool parent. So it just kind of came into a culture of that sort of going out on a Friday night, and that's how it started. As I was really young, but it was that going out on a Friday night, and the progression for me was I look back now and I can see the progression, but at the time I was always like, oh, I'm not going to get into hard drugs, or I'm not going to get into this, or I draw the line at this. And then you look back and actually, yeah, I was drinking and using every single day, every single morning, and it's crazy to look back on.
So what did you obviously you started with drinking. How long before you found drugs?
I dabbled with cannabis here and there when I was about the same age. My dad was a smoker. It wasn't like a big taboo thing. I dabbled with smoking, but I never enjoyed it. All my friends enjoyed it, and I did it to be part of the crowd, but I just couldn't handle it. It's just one thing I can't handle. And then when I got to about 15, I think I was 15 when I first discovered cocaine. And once I started doing that, there was no going back. There was absolutely no going back.
So that was one of your drugs of choice then, was cocaine?
Yeah, heavily. One of my drugs of choice, it was cocaine. As I got a bit older, I realized that I could play the doctors for all they were worth. So all the prescription pills started coming in, and basically my daily intake was spirits, whiskey. I had to have whiskey every day. I had to have cocaine every day, and I had to have my magic pills from the doctors every day. I would have said my drug of choice was cocaine, and then it only took I was nearly 3 years clean. And then I relapsed. I relapsed actually on prescription pills first, and that led me into a mental relapse. And before you know it, I was on crack and heroin because I hadn't tried those drugs. So I thought, oh, they'd be safe. Like,
Yeah, I can definitely see how one would lead to the other, especially if you have that mental that mental thing of like, oh my God, this is a relapse.
yeah,
Once you convince yourself you're in the relapse, then it's like, oh well, what did I hear about before that I want to try now?
exactly that. That was what it was for me. I started I'd been completely teetotal for nearly 3 years, and then I was really stressed at work. I was letting stuff get to me. I wasn't doing what keeps me sober. Um, and I started taking Xanax because to me, I thought, well, I could get prescribed Xanax if I wanted to. So therefore, it's not a relapse. Although mentally, I'd already relapsed by this point because I'd accepted that game. Um, and then once I started taking Xanax, I was blacking out left, right, and center. I was waking up the next day and my car was absolutely fucked. And I was like, what? And so by that point, all my defenses were down. And then I was around people that were using, and I thought, why the fuck not?
And so people don't realize how easy it is to, once you get into that mindset of like, I always say Xanax gives you the fuckets.
Yeah, it does. It completely does because I was so proud of my previous sobriety and my like how hard I'd worked, and I'd not gone near anything. And Xanax literally took the carpet from under my feet. I would always have said no, I won't go near heroin, I won't go near crack. But then they were the two that I dove straight into because I'd taken Xanax and I just literally thought, fuck it all.
Yeah, and did you steal on Xanax?
Well, I can't remember 100% to be to be
That
totally
that's
honest with you.
that
But I
happened to
lied,
me.
cheated. Do you know what I mean? I just became the person that I'd worked so hard not to be. I became everything, the opposite of all the morals that I'd built up.
Yeah, no, and that's what happens. Like, I remember I stole a bunch of jewelry one time when I was house sitting for somebody, but I don't remember it. I don't remember doing
Yeah,
it. I don't remember selling the jewelry. I don't remember the car crash that happened subsequently when I was leaving.
yeah,
All of it is just a complete blank because I was eating like 10 a day. Like,
yeah. And it's just, I really did think. I remember when I was taking them, and I really did think. I'd got down to my last bar. They came in little bars over here, and I thought I'll snap it in half. So I've got half for later. And I really thought I needed it to function. But from an outside looking in, I was like a little tornado going round. But I really thought I was functioning well. And then I was crashing my car. I was just stealing, lying, cheating, and I was an absolute mess. And I didn't realise. I thought I was on my A game. I really did think Xanax has solved all my problems. But it turns out actually it just stopped me from realising any problems. That's all it did.
so before your relapse, were you always posting on TikTok?
Yeah, yeah. So I had my TikTok account. I've had my TikTok probably about a year, I would say, maybe about a year. I came across recovery TikTok and I thought, wow, these are people that get it. Because previous to that, I became sober and clean, same thing, through AA, Alcoholics Anonymous. And they are very, over here anyways, they are very strict on, you only talk about alcohol, you only talk about, and for me, I am an alcoholic. I'm an addict. That encompasses everything. Anything you let me abuse, like let me near, I will abuse.
Yep.
So I was struggling in AA, and then I found this TikTok recovery and all these people that just got it, just really, really got it. And I could say what I wanted to say without thinking, oh shit, have I upset someone?
I
So
was
I became,
definitely like you. I was upsetting people in meetings,
yeah,
and
left,
I'm in
right,
a
and centre. I'd
conservative.
mention the word drugs, and you're like, you'd think I was kicking babies around. Like honestly, like
Yep.
they like,
And the worst part is like your stories don't make sense. You know what I
yeah,
mean? Like I was driving 2 hours each way to get my pills.
yeah,
And that would never sound right if I was like, I had to drive 2 hours to go buy alcohol because I
yeah,
couldn't find alcohol within two
yeah.
hours of me.
Yeah, I didn't
But
wait up all night. Do you know what I mean? For the off license to open, I waited up all night for a dealer to turn up at my house. Like, and it's just but
we
it
had
did.
different
I have to
ones.
give the
We had,
program credit.
did you have
It
different dealers for different times of the day?
oh yeah. I mean, I what what I ended up doing was befriending all of mine. so that, well, I thought I was befriending them. Looking back, they used me as much as I used them. But
Yeah.
I surrounded myself, my whole friendship circle was just dealers. Because if I was in the middle of the pot, I was okay. But yeah, I have to give AA credit for what it's due. Like, it got me clean, it got me sober, it got me knowledgeable about that you can live sober, because I didn't think it was possible. I did not think it was possible to cope day to day without alcohol and drugs. So it
Well,
did.
I can see, for me is I got sober first in California, where you
Yeah,
can talk about drugs in the AA meeting. They don't care. They're just happy you're there. And then
yeah,
I came to conservative PA, and where they're like against everything like that. You can't talk. So it's funny because like I've been in AA in a liberal area and AA in
yeah,
conservative, and one of them, you know, it made me believe that I was relapsing anyway, so I
yeah,
drank. I
yeah.
drank over it.
And I think that as well can be a real danger to people. That's why I post so much on social media about your recovery is your recovery. It is down to nobody else to tell you what is wrong and what is right. For example, this time round, I drink non-alcoholic beer. Whereas previously it had been drilled into my head, if I went near an NA beer, I'm on my way to relapse. Whereas now I personally, for me, I enjoy, if I'm socializing with people and they've all got their normal beer, I like an NA beer. It doesn't put me on a teeter. It doesn't make me think, oh shit, I want to get drunk. It doesn't do that for me. I'm lucky that it just doesn't. But everybody is individual, and everybody's recovery has to be individual. There's no one size fits all. There's no, I do
Yeah,
this and
and
you
the more
do
we talk about our stories, the more it normalizes it for people that are maybe relapsed. It's important for
yeah,
people to see that you would post when you had 2 years.
yeah,
That post is just as important of you posting I have 91 days.
yeah.
This podcast is also sponsored by BetterHelp. If you are looking for therapy and not able to get something right away locally, you can do that with them. Within 48 hours, you can find a therapist to get on telehealth with you. I mean, I haven't heard anything but great things from people that have already done it, that watch my show or listen to my show. If you're looking to get 10% off your first month, you can go to betterhelp.com/MJSPNPMCA. That is betterhelp.com/MJSPNPMCA.
Yeah, and that was a big thing for me, because when I relapsed, I was really ashamed. I was so ashamed, and I posted that I'd relapsed. Online. I was in relapse for about a month, maybe. To be honest with you, I thought it was 10 days, but it turns out it was a hell of a lot more than 10 days. I was saying 10 days to everyone, and they were like, Chloe, you've been gone over a month, hun. But that's that. But I decided to go public with it, because I thought, if this can help one other person, if this can just show you that actually I'm going to dust myself off and I'm going to hold my hands up and say, girl fucked up badly. But I survived, and I'm now I think this has given me the fight I needed. I'd lost my fight, and I kind of forgot what I was up against for a bit. I slept on my recovery. That's what I did. And this is the sort of thing that it takes people out, and relapse takes people out for that exact reason. People are too ashamed to come back. People are too ashamed to say,
Yeah.
oh, I did that.
I took a break from social media for like 6 months, where
Yeah,
I didn't post about my recovery for 6 months, and I had a lot of people come up to me like, "Hey, are you okay?"
yeah,
And it wasn't that I was in a relapse, and it wasn't that I was even in a mental relapse. Was I just needed a break from social media.
yeah.
I
And
need,
that's
because
really
it
important.
gets, especially
That is such
TikTok.
a
That
good thing.
TikTok knows that algorithm, and they're gonna
Yeah,
show you things that like I was just like, I got back into therapy in the last 6 months. I
yeah,
got back into doing my show eventually, but still, I had to do it on my own time. I
yeah,
couldn't rush back into it, because when you're this much of an open book, sometimes it's good to have those
yeah.
breaks.
And I think people expect a lot of you. Recently, I've had some family issues, and as an addict, obviously, I lied to my family left, right, and centre. I did. I hold my hands up to that. But I've recently had some family issues going on, and my sister, well, she's my half sister, but had created this page on TikTok to like bring me down, saying that I was lying, I wasn't an addict, I've never done drugs. And I was like, and I had to deal with all this backlash suddenly. And so far, over the years that I've been posted on TikTok, I hadn't really had much negative come at me. So it took me, it surprised me a bit, because people were like, oh, you're fucking la la la, just being really nasty. And I had to be like, is this something that I can handle right now? Because I can't pour from an empty cup. I can't do that. But actually, you know what? Props to the recovery community again, because they had me through that. They were all like, well, we all know Chloe, like we go to meetings with her, we did she's reached out to me here, she's done this. We know, we're all addicts, we understand each other. It's the normies over there that have a problem with this.
Yeah, you know what? And it's funny too, because I've had like, you know, my parents like, are you this is for real?
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, and it's a sense of deniability when they don't know the truth. They don't want to know the truth. They don't want to believe the truth.
I think that's what it comes down to, isn't it? People think they don't want, I think as much as I hurt, I have to take responsibility for the hurt I caused others. And sometimes that's actually in recovery, because my family didn't realize how bad I was. They didn't realize that I was out doing these things, and that hurts them. So I have to now take responsibility for the fact that I'm hurting people with my recovery now, because I've chosen to be honest, and I choose to share on a very big platform, and I choose to share very, very openly. And that can cause some damage along the way, but it can also save lives.
Yeah, and it's damage that it's almost like ripping a Band-Aid off sometimes when you're telling an old story. You're putting it out there because you're taking the power away. If you don't sometimes tell a story that you have in your head, it then takes over. Yeah. And then you start we're addicts. We obsess over everything, whether it's watching a TV show obsessively or whether it's doing drugs obsessively. Yeah. Our brains, like I was just diagnosed with OCD. Yeah. And it's not like I have to it's not like I have to clean everything. It's not like that at all. My OCD is about numbers. Yeah. And I obsess over numbers. Yeah. And I've said since I was a kid that, you know, people lie, numbers don't. Like that's just something I've always said. And the same goes for when I post a TikTok. I'm like, oh shit, look at the numbers. It's always about numbers to me. And to the point where it was keeping me up with insomnia. They had to put me on an OCD med so that I didn't obsess. Because, like, I was that guy where I was going to see my dealer, and I'm like, I'll be there in 13 minutes. And I would literally be there in 13 minutes on the dot. Like, the GPS would be, like, my enemy if I was driving anywhere. The GPS, you will arrive in 2 hours and 1 minute. Like, bitch, I'm going to get there in a minute 54. You know what I mean? Like, I obsessed over everything, and I didn't even realize that OCD was something that, like, I had.
It is, like, it's really funny, isn't it, how many people I meet in addiction, well, in recovery, and we've all got very, very similar, like, diagnoses and things like that. Like my OCD, I remember once when I was little, my friend gave me a sweet, and she said, don't have one. She said, because one will get lonely. Have two, right? And that's stuck in this brain of mine. I would eat peas. I still try not to. I do try not to, but I can still eat peas, and I count them because I have to have an even number. I've been through a lot of therapy for it because it's bad. But it is that addictive, it's that obsessive, controlling.
You know what it is? It's more. We're obsessed with more of whatever's making me feel good in that moment. I need the most of it.
Oh, I'm awful for it. And it's and I can see now I'm working on myself. I can see this in all ways, all shapes and forms of my life. Whereas previously I would have been like, oh, I've just got a bit of an addictive personality. But no, I'm obsessive. I'm obsessive about more.
Yeah. And I'm the person that like watches Bob's Burgers every day. You know what I mean? Like I watch the same things every day. It's my comfort.
I've got the same songs on repeat in the car.
And then TikTok will be like, hey, you're autistic. They shut up TikTok. No, I'm not.
I'm not. It's funny. I work in mental health actually, and so many of like the people I support and the people I work with, I'm like, I could have that diagnosis too. Or I can see my traits in everything, And it's only through being able to now take a step back.
Well, that I was just gonna say, it's because you're working on yourself.
Yeah.
Whenever you're working on yourself, you start looking to see yourself in everyone. You want to,
Yeah.
and because we're addicts, we're like just natural empaths.
Yeah.
So, and if we don't understand somebody, we don't question them. We get curious about where their morals are, how they got their moral. We obsess. There it is again. Two peas in the pod, literally 2 peas in the pod, Chloe. I get it. Like, and it has to be 2.
Yeah. It has to be. I have to. And the thing is, I like to learn. And that does come from my addiction because I need to be knowledgeable about stuff. I need
Did you
to
look
be.
up pills before you did them too, like on
Oh,
Pill Finder?
I'm awful. And now I administer medication, so I could tell you off the back of my hand. You mentioned a medication, I'm like, this are the side effects. This is this, and and everyone's like, why have you got that much knowledge? And I'm thinking, well, because I was actually racking up prescriptions like you wouldn't believe.
No, yeah, and I've been there because I have a psychiatrist and I have a therapist.
Yeah, same
But
here.
and the psychiatrist for years I lied to because I was afraid to be put on medicine.
Yeah.
I was afraid of, like, I studied psych in college a little bit and I was afraid to be open with my psychiatrist and afraid they're going to give me a gauntlet.
Yeah.
If they knew what was going on. If only.
But it's that sort of the fear of the unknown, especially with addicts, because I was taking so many things that I thought were controlling. Like I thought that was helping something. I could give you a reason for every drug I took. There's no like reason for it, but I could have given you a reason for everything I took. And when I got sober and made the decision, I made the very unwise decision. I would never advise anyone to do it, but I came off all my medication as well because I needed to see what was actually Chloe and what was actually side effects of staying up for days, side effects of drinking, on this, on that, and and I am now just on antidepressants, anti-anxiety medication, and I do sometimes take sleeping medication, and that is all prescribed by my doctor.
Yeah.
And that had to be really, really worked through. I've had to get to a point where
We have to be honest about it.
Yeah.
You have to know, like, I'm on a bunch of different things too. And I questioned my psych. I'm like, are we treating me for bipolar? Like, is that what we're treating? And it's such a spectrum, right? Bipolar is such a spectrum. And even between 1 and 2, but just if you're both 2 or both 1, it's such a spectrum of it. And I have sleep meds because I, like, this past April, like, when I say that, like, my sleep was so messed up, I was awake for 11 days straight. And then they tried me on Ambien, and I slept for 5 hours, and that was it. And then I was awake for like another 9 days. They finally figured it out, but it took a lot of trial and error of trying new things and figuring out what's what, because everybody has different, like, I was engaged to somebody who was bipolar schizophrenic.
Yeah.
And we were together for 3 years, and every day was something different. Every day was a new struggle. And she eventually took her life, and it just thank you. It got too much. That was 7 years ago. But I spun out in my drinking after that happened. She was also an alcoholic. And when I say an alcoholic, I mean a true, like, I'm an alcoholic, but I'm a drug addict alcoholic. She was just an alcoholic, bottle or 2 of wine every night, get the big $5 barrels.
Well, we don't have those over here, but
yeah, they have wine in giant.
Alcoholic. It's that for me, it was progression because I was an alcoholic. I had to have a liter of whiskey. I would wake up and have whiskey.
What kind of whiskey?
I mean, I like single malt whiskey, but saying that, I went through a stage of, I thought that I was pretentious. I thought I was better than, because I was drinking expensive whiskey. I couldn't afford my lifestyle. I could never afford my lifestyle. But I did go through a very, very strong phase of, I sold all my morals for drugs and alcohol. I did. I was naturally very intelligent. I did my AS levels in psychology, sociology. And then I realized that I thought I was having a good time. Looking back on it now, I was already an addict. And I could get away with doing loads of drugs and loads of alcohol if I became a stripper. So that's what I did. That's what I did. And I've been brought up in a very, very good moral family that, like, that was a no. But I did that anyways, because for me, I thought I was having a good time. I wasn't. I was feeding my addict. So I could afford all this expensive alcohol. I could
Because you were
afford it.
doing coke at the time too, right?
Yeah,
And
heavily,
coke is
heavily.
not coke, and plus you're in England. It's not like you're in America where we have a surplus of cocaine because it's coming
Yeah,
straight up. You're that's expensive. That's an expensive habit in England, isn't it?
yeah, it's the expensive one to do.
Isn't it? Is that how you say it, isn't it?
Isn't it?
Isn't
Yeah,
yeah, that's what see, I that and I got process.
yeah,
Whenever someone says because we say process.
process.
And yeah, and in it, so yeah, you have to feed that lifestyle because
Yeah.
how much were you spending every day
I mean,
on
I was
average?
spending
I'm not gonna hold you.
at least £300-400 a day, and that's just a day. That's not me going partying. That's not me having a good time. That's not me sharing with friends. That is just baseline. And then I got out of that. I got out of that job. I decided to. I thought I'd had my rock bottom. I thought I hit my rock bottom. I wrote my mum this long letter telling her about what I was doing. I didn't mention the drugs because I didn't know there was a problem. I just thought my lifestyle was a problem. So I wrote her this letter explaining what I'd done, begging her to help me and buy me out of this club because I had to be brought out. And she was heartbroken. I've still to this day, I've never seen heartbreak like it. She projectile vomited. She was disgusted in me. And I thought that was going to be my change. But what I didn't realise was I thought it was me that was the problem. I didn't realise I had a drug problem. I didn't realise I had a drink problem. So I changed my life and got this good job, and I trained up in this job, and I was doing really well. I was still doing the drugs and the drinking, but I was now doing it on a salary that I couldn't afford to do it on. So that then threw me into deeper water because I had to start getting involved with more dangerous crowds of people. I had to start doing things that were really questionable for my drugs. I was selling things, I was stealing things, I was lying, I was, you name it, I was doing it. And I still didn't think I had a problem. I didn't realize I had a problem because I had a full-time job, because I was really, really good at my job and I kept getting promoted. I had this outside life that I thought people looking in thought, yeah, she's doing really well. And it wasn't until looking back now, I think that was a shit show.
Do you have brothers or sisters?
No, so I'm my mum's only child. My dad has another daughter. She's younger than me. I've never been close to her. I've never really. I spent some time with her a couple of years ago, about 4 or 5 years ago, and she was a heavy cannabis smoker. And I can't handle it. I don't get me wrong, I smoked it every day. Cannot handle it, however. So she'd be smoking, and up against, well, try a line of this, and I did. I got her to. I did. I'm not proud of it, but it is now. I admit that. I hold my hands up and say, whoa. Don't get me wrong, she'd done it with her friends before, but I was very much like, oh, you've got to do this all the time. You're around me. This is what we need to do. I was an awful influence. I admit that. But yeah, me and her have never been close. We're completely different people. We're completely different.
And both from the same addict dad, though, right?
Yeah, we both come from the same addict. We've got very different behaviors, and we've got very different. We clash a lot now. Like now, we're not on talking terms after the whole recent things. But I'm ready to own me, and as long as I keep my side of the street clean today, it is not my business what other people are doing, and that's how I have to live today in order to stay clean, in order to, do you know what I mean? Be the best person I can be. Pardon?
Still go to meetings?
I go to meetings, yes. I go to NA now. I stumbled upon NA, and for me, it was like going home. It doesn't work for everybody. It doesn't. The 12-step programs don't work for everyone. However, for me, NA was like going home. When I relapsed, my sponsor, who was the most amazing human I have ever come across in my life, she was with me through over 2 years of my sobriety. I relapsed, and I told her that I'd relapsed, and we ended on really bad terms because I'd been lying to her for the previous month. I'd been lying to her. and I'd been lying to her and using heroin. And as an alcoholic, and I don't just differentiate between addicts, but she is just an alcoholic. She'd never done drugs. She couldn't understand. So we parted ways on quite, to be honest with you, quite upset terms. So then I started going to NA more when I realized that, you know what, I need addicts. I don't care what you're addicted to, but I need addicts. I don't need alcoholics. I need addicts.
It's obviously paying off well for you. I mean, it's definitely keeping your side of the street clean. You're being, it sounds like you're doing a lot of self-reflecting.
Yeah, I definitely am. And I mean, I went to a CA meeting as well the other day. I found that really interesting. That's a completely different kettle of fish.
It's a mixture of addicts meet AA reading.
Yeah.
It's the same, because that was the first ever meeting I ever went to where it was like coming home. It was a CA meeting on a Saturday night, and then I got really bought into AA. I had an NA home group. I had 2 AA home groups and a CA home group. And that was my first 90 days. I was going to 4 meetings a day. I'm not even exaggerating. At least 3 meetings every day at noon, and every day at 8, and every day at 11 p.m. I was at a different meeting for the first 90 days. You know how they say
90 meetings, 90 days.
I did 250.
Oh,
okay,
you know
it was like 223, but still, I did a shitload of meetings.
You know what I mean? If that, a lot of people are really blown away when they go 90 and 90, and you think, but actually, I would have rang my dealer every morning. I would have gone to the office.
It was so fun. I went to a nooner every day.
So
yeah. I didn't know anybody. I was in Los Angeles. In Los Angeles, there's like 500 meetings a week in the county. Yeah. And I was going to like the West Hollywood Recovery Center. I was hoping, honestly, I started going to meetings at the West Hollywood Recovery Center because I heard it was Demi Lovato's home group.
Gotta try.
But then she came out with that song "Sober." I'm like, oh, she relapsed.
Oh, no,
I'm not gonna see her. And then it was a real sobering thing was, I was at the meeting after she had that relapse. You know how she had that relapse and almost died?
Yeah.
I was in that meeting that night.
Yeah.
And they were all in tears because not only did she almost die, another dude that was a year clean did overdose and die. Like within 8 hours of each other.
Yeah.
Chuck, I believe his name was. You know how you don't know last names, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, this dude, he relapsed, and on his relapse he didn't make it and that shit kept me clean because I was so afraid of fentanyl. I was addicted to pills like Xanax and like Oxy. Those were
and you just don't know what that messed with.
And then the combination of those two together, mixed with some drinking, it is not a good combination. And I use cannabis to this day.
Yeah.
To this day, cannabis is used in my recovery. But I also went to a rehab in Los Angeles called High Sobriety, where it taught you how to use cannabis as a medicine and not as a drug to escape with. So, and I've always been really open with everybody in my life about my cannabis use and how I use it, when I use it, why it's used.
And that's the thing, is some people, it works for you. Yep. If I sat here right now and had a smoke, I'd be useless. Absolutely. I wouldn't, mind you though, I wouldn't cause trouble. I would be asleep and I'd maybe harass the pizza man beforehand. Other than that, you're not going to get any trouble out of me. But I personally can't handle it. Personally, I can't function. Yeah. It's just one of those things. But everybody is different. But it's finding what works for you. It's definitely finding.
That's why recovery TikTok is so important, though.
Yeah. Definitely, because there's so many different people, and there's always somebody to say, actually, that's okay. Actually, that's and you see a lot of other people. I've learned so much from so many other people. And when I'm struggling, the recovery TikTok holds me. Don't get me wrong. I call my sponsor. I'm surrounded by all of my friends are recovering addicts because all of my old friends
Well,
left me, if you believe it or not.
you know what they say, you're the average of the 5 people you spend time with.
Yeah.
So if you're spending time with all people in recovery, you're going to have strong recovery.
Yeah.
But if you're spending your days like you used to around, we'll call
Yeah.
them nefarious characters.
Yeah.
But
And that's how I
you were the
relapsed. And
biggest-
that's how I relapsed. I was spending too much time with nefarious characters, because I do a lot of outreach. I do a lot of outreach. And I'd let that cup bubble over from helping to spending too much time, because
well,
you
you
have to
called
work on
yourself a
yourself first.
teetotaler earlier.
Yeah.
Now, for
Yeah.
people that don't know, what does that mean to you?
I don't take any mind-altering substances unless prescribed by a doctor. So I do still take antidepressants, which is mixed with anti-anxieties, and I do get prescribed sleeping medication for as and when I need it.
Well,
I know that
can I ask which one, just as somebody who's
um,
tried them all?
right now I'm trying sertraline, because the typical, I was on citalopram, which really helped me, and then I did the marvelous thing of, I thought I was better, so I stopped taking it. And the last month, I'm about a month into my new tablet, so that 2 months ago I was just suicidal as hell out of nowhere, and
Seroquel made me
like,
that way.
I
Seroquel
was like,
did
oh,
that
maybe
to
I
me.
need these tablets. So I'm on sertraline this time round, because I'm now at an age where I am now starting to think about, actually maybe I'm going to have a family one day, and I want to know what medication's in my body for that reason, which
So
is something
smart, yeah.
I never ever considered before. I'm 30 and I've never even considered having children, because I wanted to party.
You had other things to do.
Yeah, I knew I couldn't be a parent. I knew there was no way. Chloe couldn't look after Chloe.
That was
Couldn't look
me.
after a rock. Do you know what I mean? Chloe was incapable of anything.
Yeah,
So I never even considered it.
I had one of those conversations with myself early into my drug addiction. Like,
Yeah.
I remember. Okay, so I was just got into Roxy 30s, the oxycodone 30s, the little
Yeah.
blue tablets. I got into them, and then I was hanging out with a buddy of mine who has never been a drug addict. He just like smokes weed. And I went over to his apartment, and he had just gotten his wisdom teeth taken out, so they gave him perk 5s. And he took one and was like assed out, just dead, just from the one perk 5. Meanwhile, I have 120 milligrams in me, and I'm like, where's the party?
Yeah.
And I had one of those conversations with myself, like, this might be a problem if 5 knocks him out and 120 is keeping you going. You might have a problem here. However, you have a job. I had a job.
Yeah.
People don't know it. I'm functioning, and I can afford this lifestyle. As long as I don't go to, and my rule was don't do heroin. So instead, I did 4 to 6 30s a day for a decade. Like, that was any better than doing heroin.
Yeah. And then I always found that line of don't do. I mean, when I relapsed, don't get me wrong, I was straight on the heroin and the crack. But then my argument was, well, I used to be a cokehead, and cocaine and crack are the same thing. They're the same thing. They're just, do you know what I mean? It's a slight chemical change, and it's the same drug. In this country, if you got arrested with crack on you, you'd get charged with possession of cocaine, because it's crack cocaine. So I justified it to myself. I thought, well, and then I was using heroin, because by this point I thought, I know that heroin, you can't say, oh, I can do X amount of heroin and be okay, because you might just die. You might just die. So what I did was I carried Narcan around with me, and I thought, if I die, I die. And that's where I got to. And that was suddenly I'd had a couple of years of recovery behind me, and all of a sudden my mind had just, where I wasn't working my recovery, where I'd lost sight of what I was doing, my depression and my mental health took over, and I just hit that, like, if I die, I die. That complete Zanny feeling of the fuck it button.
It's an easy button to hit.
It is. And it's so dangerous, because I've lost so many friends along the way from just, you think somebody's strong, and that's what I always say to people, check on your strongest friends, because when I did relapse, I rang someone that's in my NA home group and said, I was like to him, come and get my key tags off me, I'm smoking crack. And he was like, what? You're joking. And nobody believed that I'd relapsed at first because they thought I was strong. And it just goes evidence to show it doesn't matter how strong someone seems, it takes that one. And I'm one of the lucky ones, I've come back. But
Yeah.
not everybody's this lucky.
No, yeah. And the I think just the fact that you know how lucky you are will help you going further.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You're not going to be stuck in this like phase of if I am I what if
Yeah.
and then now you can go to meetings and openly talk, cuz before you were going to AA and you couldn't feel like
Yeah.
you could actually be a true Chloe. You would have to
Yeah.
be their what they want to see you as,
Yeah.
and that's
The
not going to
watered
work
down
for
version
you.
of me. The watered down version. And I have to be honest. And that's why I share so openly online. I've had a lot of my family obviously aren't that impressed that I'm online screaming about me using drugs. But if I save one person,
Neither are mine.
like it's worth it to me. It's totally the downside totally is completely outweighed by the good side. I'm not worried about people knowing about my past because I know it can save other people, and that's the important thing for me.
Yeah, I think as long as like my parents know that I'm posting, they know that I'm being safe.
Yeah.
I live about 3 hours from my parents.
Yeah.
So I think it's they don't like it because I hope that they don't think that they're bad parents because of what I did. They were
Yeah.
amazing parents. There were
Yeah, but
people that I could turn to.
there's nobody else's. There's nothing I could put my finger on and say that turned me into an addict. It's
Yeah.
nobody's fault. My mum, oh, God bless her, honestly, she is the loveliest woman in the world, and she always gave me everything I needed. I was never needed anything, you know. My dad's a different kettle of fish, but my mum, nothing. Do you know what I mean? And yet I still turned out like I did.
I don't know. I think you came out pretty nice on the other end, Chloe. You're talking about your
Yeah,
story. You're being open. You're being honest. You know, you're doing all the right things. And
yeah,
I think the most important thing is you're not lying to yourself anymore, because that will take you down a path of the
yeah.
fuck
That
it's
does.
real fast.
The what ifs. I used to go to meetings with somebody that said, "Don't be a yet collector," and I loved that. It's the what ifs and the yets that get me. Oh, well, I haven't done that yet. I haven't done that yet, and that's what got me. I was collecting those yets. I hadn't done those things yet, so I did them, and I'm
No,
lucky that I was
you're
safe
you're
and that I'm
really
here.
lucky. Especially like around here, fentanyl is so bad. I'm not sure if fentanyl really reached you
It's
guys yet.
starting to come over here now. It's starting to get over here. It's nowhere near you guys. Like, do you know what I mean? You've got an epidemic. You've got an
Oh,
absolute,
it killed
absolute.
80,000 people out of a. There was in March, beginning of COVID, right? For that whole year, April to April, there was 103,000 overdoses, and 79 of that 103 were from fentanyl.
It's absolutely heartbreaking. It's just,
People
I
people
don't
used
think
to die from heroin, but not they weren't
not
dying
for that.
in these kind of
Yeah,
numbers.
yeah. And as well, it's I think it really brings home that it just could be anyone. It could be your mum, your sister, your uncle, your someone you knew from. Do you know what I mean? It's not like
They could be
I had this
celebrities. There's been a lot
view.
of celebrities that get
Yeah,
cocaine and they get the cocaine laced fentanyl
yeah,
and they die.
yeah. And it is that sort of I had this view when I was younger that addicts are these people that are homeless on park benches, that are dirty, that are, and don't get me wrong, I went for a stage of all of those, but it's very much it could be anyone. And from people in recovery talking out about it and sharing about it gives it a chance for somebody to go, actually, I've experienced this, or I'm thinking
Yeah.
about this, or you don't know the impact your words have. And that's the beautiful thing about the platform that I've got, about the
Yeah.
platforms that are given to us,
And
that we
that's and it's funny because like the podcast name is I'm JD, and
yeah,
the podcast is MJ's Progress Not Perfection, because M is my wife.
yeah,
Mike, her name is Mikey, and JD for MJ's. We had a nonprofit for a
yeah,
while where it was a meeting center for addiction and mental health. and
Yeah.
we would host meetings there for LGBTQ, for
Yeah.
AA type of meetings, NA type of meetings, but we couldn't get enough local support and we had to shut it down eventually. But I wasn't going to change the podcast name because I've already had a bunch of like, I was at like 109 episodes when we had to
Yeah.
shut down. And that's when I took a break from mental health, from everything,
Yeah.
from posting, and I got into therapy again. And we worked on ourselves and we're honest about it. Like, hey, I went away for 5 months, but get used to me posting again, and it
Yeah.
is what it is. So and then I'm glad because I wouldn't have stumbled across your page, and here we are. And your story, is this your first time telling your story like this?
I've done. I've shared in meetings. I've chaired meetings.
Yeah.
And I've done online. It was like a video. I don't know what it was called. It was a podcast, but I don't know what it was. That was a long time ago though.
Oh, okay, so a lot's been updated then. So
A lot changed since then. Yeah.
I'll let you know when the episode's up.
Cool.
All right. Thank you so much for like taking the time, being so honest, and
Thank you for having
talking
me and
about
thank
it.
you for inviting me.
Oh, my pleasure for sure. I'll talk to you soon, Chloe.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.